everyone, Justin Bell here on Drive to Win from the Sirius XM studios at the beautiful Wynn, Las Vegas. Well, what a weekend. Weekend for so many reasons. Actually, me, because I was hosting the Greenwich Concours for Haggerty over on the East Coast, a beautiful car concours and amazing cars surrounded by totally the other end of the automotive realm with one of the cars from 1905. Can you imagine that? As it drove up, it's 120 years ago. Fast forward 120 years and you have a race like we just had at Spain at the Circuit Catalunya. It was fast-paced. It was pretty boring in the middle, and then at the end, very frantic. And of course, it was a tire strategy race until it wasn't. And then they had a big impact on the final result. So a lot to unpack there. My guest this week is Mika Hakkinen, you know, my old sparring partner. Well, less of sparring. I tried to hit him, but he mainly hit me, and metaphorically when it came to us in the junior series. But obviously, Formula One twice world champion, and he was on the ground in Spain. So I'm actually very excited to get Mika on the phone. He's currently driving home across Europe, so hopefully he'll get home and join us. Well, it turned into a Mario Kart race, as Lando Norris said, as Max Verstappen literally threw his toys out of the pram, and I guess left us all replaying those last few laps just to work out kind of what happened and if any of that behavior was justified. But do you remember, guys, when it comes to the overall results in Formula One at the moment, with McLaren being so, dominant, if you want to look at it like that, it's not as easy a run to dominance as Red Bull had a couple of years ago, but the net result is the same. But remember, that's what we all asked for. We wanted this super competitive season where pretty much 5 or 6 cars have a shot of putting it on the podium, putting it in the top spot any given weekend. But if you think back a couple of years, we were just tired of it, weren't we? We were tired of Max steamrolling everybody, and every show I started was Max won again, and behind them it was just, the assortment of cars trying their best to dethrone him. But now we have this McLaren, take this weekend, lock out of the front row. Lando coming off the back of his Monaco victory, which was so comprehensive. And then Oscar had that fabulous lap for pole in Spain. So those two really working well. And there's an interesting difference in the way the psychology of them. Whereas Lando coming so strong off Monaco, it was a career-defining moment for him. Oscar seemed incredibly upset after losing Monaco. But then we come to this one, and Lando in second seemed pretty content with his lot, which I thought was very interesting. And I think he just realized the better man on the day one. And as an athlete, there comes a moment, and I wish we saw more of this in Formula One, you just kind of have to concede and say, I did the best job I could, and guess what? Oscar was faster today. The race started with Oscar leading the World Drivers' Championship by 3 points, and that was the big news coming off Monaco. And, what was that going to be as they came out of this race? Now, obviously, Lando had another pretty bad start. Max went up to second, so immediately the drama was set in motion. And I just always think about the strategists immediately having to revise their charts and the algorithms popping their brains to see where it's going to go. But it was really about McLaren being dominant at the front with 362 points. And then you think Ferrari are 165 behind, Mercedes are 159, and Red Bull only have 144, so a long way back. There's another thing that's happened with McLaren that we used to pick up on in reverse with Red Bull, is as a team gets into its winning ways, and remember, we did talk about that last year. Like, they've won a race, or then they keep messing up. They've won a race, and then they keep messing up. Now they've headed into that rarefied air where the entire team is working as a cohesive organism, and their pit stops are immaculate. They're not making mistakes. Their strategy seems really spot on, and that really does remind us of the Red Bull era of dominance. And how does it all unfold for the end of the year? Well, Max had his 4 straight titles. Piastri's at the front. I'm not sure that we're going to have any clear definition on who'll be winning that until certainly a little closer to the middle end of two-thirds of the season. And then there won't be a roll-on of championship after championship, because 2026 theoretically is just going to be anyone's game, isn't it? It's a total reset. And some teams, as you can hear, whether it's Aston Martin or Williams, are really focusing, or on the verge of focusing, all their resources to come out on top in that. So a lot to play for there. But the 2021 version of Max Verstappen is back. And I really tried to think about why that is. And we've all been talking about it this morning. And what provokes an athlete at the top of his game with vast experience to react the way he did. And I think, though, like anything that goes on in life, you can't just say it was that moment. There was normally a preceding set of events that act as individual catalysts to put you to that point. I mean, he was having a pretty solid race. He was right up there. He was... he knew he didn't have the car to take it to McLaren right at the, ultimate pace. But boy, oh boy, in his hands, he's putting the Red Bull right there. And then he's told to box when right at the end with 7 laps to go. And when he came in and did that, you think to yourself, hold on, if he'd stayed out, what kind of jeopardy were they playing there? He would have had track position at the front. What if McLaren had a fumbled pit stop? What if they got stuck behind traffic? Even if they went by him, they could have ended up on the podium, which would have had a huge shift in the points in terms of at least putting points on the board, and none of this craziness that we've seen happen since then. So that was the first thing, and he must have been bemused by that. And then, of course, they put him on the hards, and he's like, has anyone else run the hards this race? And they're like, no. And we saw the consequences of that, because when it was on the restart, that was not just a gentle losing the back end. That was a tank slapper on the front straight at 140 miles an hour that could have been relatively catastrophic. And that, of course, gave Leclerc the chance to come by. And, that incident when they touched, did they touch? I mean, Leclerc moved, he moved a bit, and then Leclerc moved and he didn't move, and they had a little bump at immense speed, guys. So that obviously rattled him. And then George Russell smelt blood in the water, and he does that dive, that sort of Liam Lawson now trademarked dive bomb, which seems to be getting okay with the FIA. But in reality, they forced Max out wide, and he rejoined, and obviously still in front of George. And then he's told by GP, his race engineer, to let Russell by. And I just thought to myself, that wasn't enough of an offense. And it turns out that what really, really made Max pissed is he was right. He gave it back, and he didn't need to, because the FIA weren't going to give him a penalty for it. So, premeditation on behalf of his engineer again took Max to the edge. And I guess the big thing is, what did Max mentally think he was doing when he slowed up to let George by and then reaccelerated and basically drove into him? If that was Formula Ford, if it was any other series, it was F2, that driver would be black flagged. It was so blatant. How can we credit Max with this superhuman awareness on one hand, and then on the other just say, oh, yeah, no, he was flustered. He didn't know what he was doing. That's actually bullshit. He knew exactly what he was doing, and maybe that's a crossover from his sim world, where the consequences obviously are far more trite by hitting someone like that. George, quite rightly, was like, what on earth was that all about? So for me, it's disappointing, isn't it, when your heroes do something like that? And it brings up a bigger question, which is, when the greats are up at that level, and I'm not saying that they're fading, but they also know when they're beaten. And believe me, Max has got more championships in him in the future. But are they able to do that with grace? I don't know. I think they're too competitive. I think there are certain athletes that did it. I mean, Roger Federer in tennis, he'd still win Grand Slams, but they started to slow down a bit in their, proximity. And I think that he really is at that top level, and he just hits his rev limiter mentally. I mean, Ayrton Senna did it. He drove Prost off to win the championship. Schumacher's done it twice back in the day. He collided with Damon Hill at the Australian Grand Prix to get one of his championships, and then with Jacques Villeneuve at the 1997 European Grand Prix. I mean, the guy that we idolize as one of the best in the world ever to hold a steering wheel, he just flipped his switch and behaved like a petulant child. But in all fairness, Max came out a bit later on social media and took responsibility for it, and he said he's stressed and aggravated by the situation. But I think some blame on this has to go on Red Bull and the way they managed him, and they provoked him. And and the other side of it is, I think he's driving out of his skin, guys. I think he's on another level of drawing on all his talents just to put the car up at the top, and it doesn't give him much bandwidth for negative situations. So, kind of wild. Could have had a podium instead of a ban, almost a ban. We'll get to that in a minute. Well, four names that don't normally go together, but kind of do in this aspect to the race: Kimi, Isack, Nico, and Alonso. What a group! Starting with Kimi. When he lost power, guys, what did you think? I thought it was wild. At first, we thought he made a mistake, but then you realized that that shutdown of the engine was immediate. That engine just grenaded itself. Imagine you were in a 3G corner at 200 miles an hour. That could have been really, really traumatic. As it was, he just went straight on. But it means it was 3 DQs for the rookie in a row, which is obviously not what he needed. Speaking of rookies, someone on the other side of it, 3 straight Q3 appearances, 3 straight points finishes. I'm starting to promote Isack Hadjar for, I think, being the strongest rookie in the field. He's not in a Mercedes like Kimi. He's not with that massive infrastructure that they have, an ecosystem. He's in that Red Bull, second Red Bull, and I think, Racing Bulls, and I think he's just driving brilliantly. And we're going to be talking about him as a championship contender within the next 2 or 3 years. I really do feel. Finishes P9, ends up P7. Really starts P9, finishes P7. I'm really, really impressed. And then you see the human side and the camaraderie amongst some of the drivers when you have all of them as they get out of the car, as they're sitting in the cool down room going, what, Nico? Nico's 6th? He is. And you can tell he's obviously one of the most liked guys in the paddock. And all these drivers competed against each other for 10 years before they made it to Formula One. So they all know how good each other is, and they all know they deserve their place there. And some of them just have better teams to be with and better opportunities. But I think ending up right at the top there, and obviously 5th in the end, what a great result. Spain's big hero outside Carlos Sainz obviously is Fernando Alonso, and I am, he certainly gave his fans something to be happy about and scream about. He went off in the gravel, ran wide. It could have been the end of his race, but had a lot of frustrations. But he's Fernando Alonso, and he finished this race in Spain in front of his home crowd, in the points, and first points of the year. So really good. All in all, it was a race that ended up being worth watching, and, brings up a lot of combative and thought-provoking conversation, I guess, as we head into the next one. So we shall see. Well, Wynn Las Vegas's Ultimate Race Week is back for 2025. And of course, anchored by the Formula One Heineken Silver Grand Prix, which is November 20th through November 23rd. Now, our event, from immersive pop-ups and branded takeovers to A-list performances and thrilling views of the circuit, Wynn Las Vegas does put you right in the center of it all. For more information regarding room and ticket packages, you can visit winlasvegas.com, and that's winlasvegas.com. Well, why don't we have a chat with Mika Hakkinen? Mika, he's a Finnish racing driver. He was in Formula One from 91 to 2001. That's 10 whole years. He was nicknamed the Flying Finn, not just because he got all four wheels off the ground, because he was so freaking fast. And he won 2 Formula One World Championship titles in 98 and 99, both with McLaren. I can't believe it. He actually only won 20 Grand Prix across 11 seasons. It seems so much more, but he was just one of the most breathtakingly brave drivers that I ever saw on track and ever had the pleasure to be on track with. So it is great to have him here on the show. And Mika, thank you, my friend, so much for taking the time this morning.
Thank you, Justin. Pleasure. Very nice. Thank you. Finally.
So you were driving back from the Spanish Grand Prix?
No. I was actually going from south of France, from Monaco, all the way to Desenzano in a place called Lonato, and I didn't take for account that suddenly the whole Italy decided to go holiday that day, and all the highways were chock-a-block. So I'm happy we can have a chat today. This is cool.
I was thinking you're not the Flying Finn. You were like the traffic version of the Flying Finn. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was thinking everything. I was thinking about helicopters, private planes, everything. But I managed to get here yesterday quite late. But all cool now. Everything.
I'm glad. Well, let's jump in, talk about the race. The first 80% was, it was just a race, right? You're watching them cycle through on the tires and everything. And I was actually away and I was working on hosting an event. So I was watching it in the evening and everybody kept on saying, my dad and everyone was like, just wait till the end. So, I was watching it unfold. What's your whole overview on the race before we dive into the Max incident?
Well, first of all, my first impression, my first feel, let's call it feeling, was I was so glad, I was so happy to see the McLaren doing so well. First of all, in starting already from qualification and because I have been in the same situation with McLaren, being a front row quite a few times in Barcelona. In my case, when I was in front row in Barcelona, we were like, I think more than 1 second quicker than anybody else.
Wow.
We had a rocket car. We had a fantastic car. So now this Grand Prix this year, you can see the times are very close indeed in the qualification. So I knew already that this is not straightforward domination of the McLaren team, and that's what happened then. Piastri got a great start, and Lando was not so brilliant start. So it gave the opportunity. It gave the opportunity for competitors' attack.
Yeah. Just take me back. You're talking about the starts. Your cars at the time were the state of the art, right? It was better than anything else. The McLaren was so great. Their starting procedure now must be 10 times more complicated than yours, right? What did you have to do to get off the line? What was your sequence? I was just interested. I never asked you.
Practice.
Oh, you could practice, really?
It was practice. It was a data. It was practice, developing different program, how the clutch is functioning. So when you are releasing the clutch, you can have different curve on a clutch. When it bites, you can adjust fly-by-wire throttle, how much you're accelerating. That way you don't get too much wheel spin. But for us, it was a really secret of practice and practice. So we hired many times just the airfield, and only what we did was practicing starts. It was really psychologically demanding, because it's just start. You turn around in end of the airfield, you come back, you look in the data, and you see and make start again, round and starting your data and making a new start constantly all the time. And of course, developing also different materials That way the clutch doesn't overheat too much. That way it becomes very consistent. So my secret was a lot of do with the practice, and this is, my opinion, one of the most challenging areas for the racing drivers today's world, because they cannot practice that too much.
And the simulators can't give them that, because you feeling, in your backside, you feel the grip, right? You feel it slipping. You feel the traction. You can't feel it in a sim, can you? I don't think.
No, and of course the temperatures are different, and you are not always starting from pole position. It can be second, you can be fifth, whatever. So your situation is always, it's all the time changing your performance in a qualification. So you need to have a huge experience and practice to able to make a good start. Today's, if you look at all the Formula One cars, how they make a start these days, it's super brilliant. They all of them starting from the grid extremely well. But it also difference is today's Formula One cars. They have incredibly beautiful linear torque curve in an engine.
Yeah.
So again, going back in time, you had very inconsistent torque until 7,000 RPM, and suddenly 7,000, you got great power all the way until 18,000. So now you get the torque very linear very early, so you can control the wheel spin. So it's a lot to do with the reaction time. And if you look Lando's and Piastri's reaction time in a start, there was a slight difference.
Yeah.
So also the cars in Barcelona track, the cars who are starting from the second row, they get beautiful toe going to first corner because it's such a long way. So it gives a lot of good opportunities for the
good opportunities.
Yeah.
Are you like me when you watch the start of the Grand Prix? I see that countdown and I feel it, don't you? Do you sit there feeling it? I'm like, I love that moment just before the green light. Well, they don't have the flag, right? But when the light goes out, I love that feeling. Do you still feel it in your soul? That the ability you can be quicker than someone else away from the line. I love that.
It's a very exciting moment. You're right. It is a very exciting moment. My heart rate goes up when the light comes on. My heart rate goes up, and then sometimes I'm wondering I'm thinking about how quick my reactions would be, when the light goes off. But I tell you what, when the light goes off, it takes from me about 3 seconds if I would release the clutch.
That's just because of all the vodka since then. That's not.
It's just because these wrinkles are coming.
Yeah, we can't see. So I mean, I love it. The race settled down. We're watching it all. But here's a question: and Lewis brought it up on the radio when the yellow flag came out, Mika. It seemed, who was off in the wall? Who pulled it? When Kimi had gone straight on, right? He'd gone, the car had locked up, and that was a total engine shutdown, wasn't it? I mean, that was grenaded and came to a stop.
The first time, yeah.
Yeah, the first one. Why do they stay out so long under these yellows? I mean, it seems like they could have cleared the track. I mean, what is race control achieving with that?
This is something what I cannot comment too much. It's something. I feel that way it's difficult to find always a consistency in that. They are Formula One is now extremely critical on safety. They really want to make everything track is clear. There is no any kind of machines moving the cars. Jules Bianchi, we remember what happened to him in Japan. So they really want to make sure that where everything's under control. So I don't know. It's
they just have to be on the side of safety, is what you're saying. I mean, also we don't have all the data, do we? We got to remember we're sitting at home with a drink.
Yeah, it's a very complicated process. It's a super complicated, and the guys who are in charge of that and looking at this data, computers, and analyzing when is the right moment to do what. It's too easy from looking from the TV monitor at home and saying like, why they do that? Why they do this? So they always focusing just for safety, such a maximum for that.
Such a mention. Well, obviously the whole race came alive, rightly or wrongly, when, Max came out. He's on the hard tires, the only one. I loved his question, right?
Yeah.
Has anyone else run these tires yet?
Yeah. I was I was very surprised about that comment, and not comment, but question about Max, about his tires. Normally, the driver do know exactly what tires you have and what conditions the tires you're going to have when they put them in a car during a race. When I personally, when I saw them putting hard tires for Max, I thought this not gonna end up nicely, because he's gonna struggle. He cannot get the temperature. He's gonna slide all over the place all the time, and everybody just coming left, right, and center, overtaking him, and it's gonna be painful. It's nothing what he can do, and not so many laps to go anyway. So it was, yeah. I mean,
do you think he should have? Do you think? And I'm sure they've analyzed it back, left, right, and center. If they had left him out, he'd probably have had a third place podium, regardless, right? If he'd stayed out, he'd have had track position. Yeah, he's on more used tires, and the McLarens, they would have gone by, but they put him in a really difficult position, I think.
Yeah, I was wondering same question, and I'm sure a lot of fans were thinking about same thing. That what's going on? Why just didn't stay out there? Even he had quite a few laps in his tires, and who knows how many laps, this gonna all take. Maybe maybe they would just you don't know, but when the team is operating and there's people deciding back in a factory with all the data and all the scenarios what can happen, and people on the pit wall, the pressure is enormous. They have calculated different scenarios, and they obviously recognize this is the best option. But I think so.
Well, he certainly didn't like it, did he? He certainly didn't like it. Especially, give context to this. When he came onto the start straight, and Max, as much talent as anyone's ever had, when that car snapped sideways, that's not easy to hold at 140 miles an hour in a Formula One car, is it? That even with all his experience, would that have been a what the F moment? Would he, crazy?
That was incredible, I tell you, absolutely incredible. But it also, what I saw that he has won a world championship quite a few times. He has enormous confidence, and he thought, I'm not gonna give up. I have to go through this corner. That right-hander corner coming to main straight is super fast corner, and I thought he's gonna rely on a good balance of the car. He's gonna rely on a good downforce, and thinking about it. Okay, if you slide a little bit front end, rear end, I can handle it. But just in an exit, the rear snapped, and that was scary. If he would have go off in that corner, it would have been definitely a auto safety car red flag. He would have go off big way. But how he was able to handle the balance of the car, I think, we don't see the data, so maybe he backed off extremely fast, reacted with the steering. But I'm 100% sure his heart rate went up big way. And only thing what he's thinking about it, losing the back end and getting back the car straight line. He's thinking like, how much I lost time. Is this gonna be a chance to the guy to overtake me? So then, of course, next, then they went. It was Leclerc who was coming.
Leclerc came up.
Yeah.
And it was weird, right? For me, they did this, and then McLaren moved again, but Max didn't move. You've got the whole track. Don't move over on me. And they definitely touched. Mika, front left tire to side panel at by then 180 miles an hour. It's, one little bit further forward and back, and it is cartwheels.
It would be a mess, but that really indicated the frustration of Max. It definitely should not happen in this level. But okay, let's put it back a little bit time. What I mean, put it back time. They had 3 races on road. Every weekend Grand Prix, 3 races on road. So that is mentally extremely mentally very demanding. It's physically demanding, mentally demanding. All the brain work what you have to do with the team to go through the data to try to maximize the performance of the car, communicate with the media, communicate with the fans. Again, staying all the time in a hotel basically. So people get tired. They get mentally tired. So then when we see in a TV that way this kind of collision happens on a straight line, it's an indication of just some the drivers getting big pissed off. They are running on the limiter capabilities psychologically what they can do. So I don't think if there would be 1 or 2 weekends off through that, I think the mind would be a bit more calm and collective. But I think
so. Let's carry that forward, Mika, because the next 5 laps is where the fireworks happen. Correct. So Leclerc goes by. Russell has the chance to come down the inside. He dive bombs. In my opinion, it was just the classic. Oh, he goes out wide. He rejoins. He takes the escape road and he comes back on. Same position. George is behind him. And then he gets told to let Russell by. And he knew as well as you and I knew that he shouldn't do that because it was just a racing moment. And he went and did it. And then, of course, that set us up for, what happened next. But I think Red Bull have to take some accountability at this point as a team for putting Max in a bad position.
Justin, you understand, these kind of situations are very, very tricky, are very difficult for the driver, for the team. Max, he knows also that way the car performance is not in a level what it has been for years. So he's very frustrated to experience this kind of situation where teams, you have to let now this guy to pass because you overtook him like this, and it's tough. So what I'm trying to all the time say, actually, I'm trying to say that whatever happens on a racetrack, you always have to respect your competitor. You can always fight hard and you can challenge the wheel to wheel, and that should be always the rule. Doesn't mean you have to be the mega gentleman out there. You can always play some tricks what you have learned over the years, but nothing nasty. So this what happened between Max and Russell was definitely, it was looking from the outside extremely bad.
So let's talk me through that.
But again, what I'm trying to say here, I have to raise my hands up here in a way that I'm not going to start blaming Max or blaming Russell. It's really these guys know from in their heart what's been going on, what's been happening. So it's better if they talk and they explain what's going on.
And I think you're right. For me, I watched it. If you think about what happened, I think he he was never intending to hit Russell. He was just like, I've got to let you by. It's a joke. And he accelerates a bit more. We've done it on the, when you do it on the warm-up lap or under yellow, I go, you go, I hold back, you now brake, I go. It's legal. Now, what he did there didn't look good, but I think he was, you think he was on the rev limiter? I think he'd just bent all the valves, right? At that point.
Yeah, I mean, to give in always the fact information for fans, example, the fans are important. They need to know the truth, and speculations when you don't sit in a car yourself, you're speculating from outside. It's difficult to tell the fans exactly what's going on. So I think the Formula One has improved over the years, giving information, the data for the fans that they can see what is really going on in real life. So this is a very similar situation. It would be great to have a data and look at it. Russell's car, the steering trace, how much he put in brake pressure. The same for Max. Max is a little bit on the dirty side of the road. He had a hard compound. Russell has a soft compound. These kind of things that what needs to see in a fact on a data. The steering trace. It's very easy to say, are you turning left or right? And to see. That's why it's always the speculating and commenting from outside. It could be very tricky, and it can mislead the rest. Let's call it the media. It can mislead the fans, and I don't want to say that. If I would have before this phone call, have a look at the data, I would tell you a lot of different story. But I've been sitting in a traffic jam in Italy.
So coming out of that, I think picking on what you just said, it really is, it's stress, it's pressure. He is driving above the limit of the car every lap of every race. And that is something as a driver you've experienced. Yes, you had the dominating McLaren years, but you also had years where you got great results in the top 10, in the top 6, in a car that wasn't as good. And when you're pushing at that level all the time, I think your ability, your bandwidth to handle these things, it becomes less.
Absolutely right. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's why it's also interesting that Max afterwards, he looked at the data, he looked at the video, and his next round of social media was, I shouldn't have done it. I did it wrong. But what must have really pissed him off, Mika, is that the FIA race control were not going to make him give the position back to George. Right? That's what came out yesterday. They're like, no, we weren't going to, you didn't have to give the position back. So I wouldn't have wanted to be his team when he walked in the pits and found that out. Whoa.
The team, my opinion, in generally, there's a rule book. You have to respect the rule book, and the race control, FIA, Formula One, they are very strict with this rule book, and if they recognize the driver is doing something wrong, they will let the team to know. And if the team is making decisions and they make their own conclusions, some incident, it's a bit. This gonna create some really bad things inside in a team, because Max is a driver, and I compare one sense sometimes with like a Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher was always flat out. Even he was last, he was thinking I'm gonna win this race, and he did risks, overtaking maneuvers, which were sometimes, my opinion, incredible. I mean, he don't think about I'm gonna overtake next corner. No, he overtakes that corner where he has a chance. So it can generate the risks and the confidence. What Michael Schumacher had is it was incredible. And here we are with Max, and I think his confidence also is so high that way, whatever position he is, he's just maximizing his performance. And these kind of mistakes, let's call it, if the team is not following instructions and making their own decisions. That way they had to let the Max to somebody else to overtake Max. Max gonna go bananas. He's gonna go bananas. He's gonna go on the maximum rev limiter, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that now, comparison to Schumacher, because I mean, you were on track against him. You were one of the guys that was there, and in my opinion, you're one of the best I ever saw. But you knew that you had a guy there that could operate when he needed to on another level. He can take it up to the next. He can like find another button on the elevator, can't he? And just go one step up.
It was fantastic, like, Justin, in motor racing, it's all about learning, constantly learning, constantly asking questions, constantly challenging people, with your questions, and those answers will give you confidence to do the next steps. And I was always, I was never a teammate for Michael Schumacher, example, but it would be fascinating. But already on the racetrack, outside of the race car, and when we were racing the racetrack, it was beautiful to follow him, and to follow him with a very calm mind, not rushing, not going there like I can overtake him, just to observe his way of entering the corner, his approach to the breaking point. What kind of is he driving with the anger? Is he driving with the physical power? Is he driving with his talent, or is this all mixed together? And I was very calmly just looking very often high-speed corners, medium high-speed corners, low-speed corners, his technique of driving. And it was fascinating to look at this and to learn something from that. And
so sometimes being behind him was sometimes being behind him is not a bad thing to be.
It was in a free practice.
Free practice. Let's bounce away from Max before we get to the end of this and talk about McLaren. As you said, you must be so proud. The team, I said it in the open of the show, they're running the way Red Bull were 2 years ago. Their pit stops are perfect. They are executing strategy. There doesn't seem to be confusion like there was when they'd throw wins away. And that's what it makes to be a winning team, right? The team get the drivers in the position to win races. But McLaren weren't used to winning races and championships for a few years. So it's taken a while for the whole organization to get on the same level. But now they're there. And they have something unique in that they have two drivers that could pull this off this year. I think they have we'll be talking about this over the next 10, 12 races. There's stories that haven't been told yet, right? Between those two drivers and the strategy, and how do you see it playing out over the year?
Well, first of all, the McLaren team it's team. It's really a great team. There's a great communication together with every department. There's a great communication, harmony, and I just spoke to Zach Brown this morning, and I said to Zach, this is incredible. It's a very emotional roller coaster, what you go constantly through, because the winning is never obvious. It's like we know, winning is not just coming like this, and you're all the time on a knife edge, and to able to manage every team member to stay on that knife edge, and the McLaren's been able to put these team members working together in a great harmony. And like you said, Justin, there's two great drivers in a team, different characters, what's going on here? Is it somebody's birthday or something? And it's two different type of characters, and Oscar Piastri is quite a calm personality. certainly there's a fire inside him, and Lando is more talkative. He talks more and explains about himself, talks about racing. So you can imagine what's happening inside in a team of McLaren. There must be a great feeling, because if you have a 2,000 people, it doesn't mean they like only one driver, or they, it's a team, and also way they are performing together. It's just brilliant. The time difference is nearly minimum how they are doing the driving there. But looking at now the rest of the season, I think there's a difference, something like 10 points in the championship, and there's a plenty of races to go. Very challenging, difficult tracks coming up. Conditions can be anything. Some of the races can be in rain or dry or whatever. So the whole game is open. Only what I can see, the McLaren only getting stronger. They getting only stronger, not stronger because team is developing a car. They're getting stronger also because these two drivers, they start performing even higher level. And this is fantastic.
To have both sides of the garage performing, it's not just the drivers beating each other, right? It's all the team members, it's the crew, it's the strategists, it's the tire guy, everybody, the jack guy, everybody is performing higher than the other side of the garage, right? They're trying to be better. And that is a unique situation when you have two A drivers.
Exactly. And it's a really, really interesting situation. And this is also, it's a great thing for management to able to keep this in a great harmony. That way it doesn't separate these two parts of the team. That way everybody continue working together. I have to be careful with my hands, otherwise comes these balloons or something in the screen again, Anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. The harmony. It's about the harmony. It's about them holding it together. Well, listen, we're running out of time here because I know you got to go. But I was just looking at my notes, and your last year was Fernando Alonso's first year. Is it remarkable to you? Does it blow your mind? You've lived a whole second life since you got out of a Formula One car, and he's still in bloody Formula One. Talk about what he's doing. I mean, I think he's up and down, but talk about what it means for him and what he has to put in to try the effort to try and stay there, to be in Formula One 25 years later.
I really think it is a personality question. We are all different, we all like different things in our life, and I think this is the Fernando's journey of his life. It's everything for him, and no, I don't say everything for him. I'm sure he has a lot of other interests in his life, but this is it, and I think I admire his because I'm personally very critical for myself, and I hate making the mistakes, and with the racing car, to able to let it go that way. If you make a little mistake, okay, it doesn't matter, it's just, it doesn't matter. Next lap I'm gonna do better lap, and so it's very tough. But for Fernando, it doesn't seem to mind. He keeps going, and I think it's fantastic. Why is fantastic? Because I think he's an example for a lot of fans out there. That way, if you take care of yourself, and you enjoy what you do, it's a great journey of your life, and I think that's his journey. I think he just love it.
He loves it. He loves it. Well, Mika, it's always fun. We could talk for hours because
Thank
there's
you.
so many things to talk about, but we'll do it again. What's next for you? When do you go to another race?
Well, I'm gonna next one. I'm gonna go to Silverstone Grand Prix. So there's a couple of Grand Prix between, but British Grand Prix is the next one where I'm gonna go.
Okay, I might see you there. I might.
Hey,
I'll let
Justin,
you know.
remember take an umbrella with you, huh?
That's why I moved to California.
Exactly.
Screw that.
Not
I
a bad
don't live
move.
there for a reason.
Not
I
a
know.
bad
Hey,
move.
Mika, thank you. Not bad. Thank you so much. I love it. Nice to see you, even if it's through the camera. We can't have a drink this way, but it's,
We see you in Silverstone.
see you in Silverstone. Take care, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to Mika. As always, a very insightful guest, and it's a real honor to have him on the show. Well, the next race in the championship is coming from Montreal, Canada, a little bit closer than they've been recently. What is the circuit like, I guess, and why would you go to Montreal? Why is it such an attractive racetrack, not just for the drivers, but for also the fans, the teams, the mechanics? Well, to be blunt, the track is absolutely outrageously fun to drive. It's definitely one of their favorites. It's a little bit stop-start, which does encourage a lot of overtaking because that's what we've been looking for on some of these modern tracks. I mean, a lot of heavy brake into the chicanes and then it was a bit of iconic hairpin. But of course, the rest of the track is very fast and flowing. But there's many areas that have caused quite big incidents in the past. We saw Damon Hill, Jacques Villeneuve, and Michael Schumacher all go off once during the 1999 Canadian Grand Prix weekend. So, it is not a track that is without its peril. But also, there's another side. Everybody loves going to Montreal. I only went there once for a sports car race, and I remember thinking to myself, yes, they're right. The mini skirt never went out of fashion up there, apparently. Everyone seemed to be beautiful in the paddock, and it was definitely one of the most attractive race fan crowds I've ever seen. And the Montrealese really enjoy their Grand Prix weekend, and it's such a charming city that turns into a full F1 party. So no wonder the guys like it, and when they go there. Let's go back to last year, though, and just looking at the top five, it really does sum up where we are right now, other than Max Verstappen at the top, but he's always threatening that, isn't he? So Max won it. Then we had Lando. Then we had George Russell, then Lewis Hamilton, and then Oscar Piastri. A little bit of a reversal from that first to fifth at the moment, but it does show that this time last year, we're starting to see all the ingredients for this incredibly vibrant, vivacious 2025 season that we've got right now. I mean, obviously, the big questions going into it, if you care, is that Lance Stroll once again has this hand injury that seems to be affecting what's coming up. And it's uncertain whether he'll be able to have an operation and recover in time for the next race. But I think the team are kind of sticking stum on quite how that happened. Apparently, he did throw his toys out of the pram after falling out of Q1 and throwing stuff around and smashing things and behaving like a petulant child. Maybe he hurt his hand, maybe he didn't. Either way, the big thing right now is this is the first year in a long time that the F1 calendar is overlapping with, one of the races of the Triple Crown in motorsport, which is the Le Mans 24 Hours. And what a pity that is. I mean, a few years ago, Fernando Alonso took his year out of Formula One, went into World Sports Cars with Toyota, won Toyota's first 24 Hours of Le Mans, added that to his resume, and went back to Formula One. Unfortunately, it means that a lot of the drivers who are test drivers or second drivers in these teams, such as Felipe Drugovich for Aston Martin, he is committed at the moment to be with Cadillac, but he's saying that he'd absolutely focus on his ambitions of being in Formula One and head to obviously to Canada with the team, as would I, although he's in with a pretty good shot at winning the 24 Hours as well. But if he isn't allowed to do that, apparently the next driver isn't available, and then it might even be down to a call up on Mercedes, Valtteri Bottas, who is, they run Mercedes-Benz engines with Aston, so maybe he'll be allowed to come in on loan, which is why a guy like Valtteri has to stay so fit and he's ready, and he'll be ready to jump in. And I think that would be absolutely bloody brilliant. Of course, Max is on the edge of this one race ban. He's got 11 penalty points out of 12. I don't need to go into how it's happened, but it's involved Lando twice. It's involved yellow flag violation and all sorts of stuff. Pace car violation, which makes you think, or common sense would be, he's going to drive a little more conservatively going into the Canadian race. Is he? No, I don't think he is. Because Max never, ever has a hangover, so to speak, from one race to the next. He gets there on a Thursday to get in the car on Friday, and it's a magical, very professional reset of everything as he heads into the next weekend. And I've talked about it a lot. I think it's one of the gifts that sportsmen, athletes have, is not losing next week's race because you lost yesterday's race. And I don't think Max at all will show too much restraint. But the other drivers might not know that. And if an Oscar Piastri is head-to-head with him, or a Lando, will they push a bit harder? Ooh, I hope so. Talking about Oscar, is he really... Are we about to see the start of a demoralizing Oscar Piastri run of wins, summer wins? I kind of think so. But at the same time, I'm a big Lando Norris fan. And Lando, I mentioned it at the top of the show, he came in after Monaco so high on life. And I think he knew this weekend that he was just beaten by the better man. But will he feel like that after 2 weekends in a row? Something tells me not. But certainly it's all to play for at the front. And interestingly, on social media this morning, Zach Brown had said something about, I am not going to put team orders in place with these guys through the season unless it's just absolutely objectively stupid not to do so, because I'd rather they went for individual wins than for the championship. I don't know. It doesn't kind of make sense to me. I bet they want the championship. So all the other teams like Red Bull, they know you have to put team orders in at some point. Not yet, Zach. I hope not. And of course for Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, 2 podiums in a row, rather surprisingly, this weekend. And whether they're inherited or not, you still have to put yourself into a position to maximize the opportunity. And I think Ferrari will be heading into this weekend quite optimistic to try and get up there again. The car has pace. Lewis had a dismal weekend. I haven't even mentioned him. Hopefully he'll get his game back up together before we go to Canada. Anyway, I'm looking forward to a little bit of a break now, and I'll see you back on the next episode. Thanks, as always, to SiriusXM for having us on the show. And remember, just follow us on the app, on SiriusXM app, or on Channel 81 on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Take care.